Police and Prison Civil Rights Union, Popcru, have reportedly labelled the Thabo Bester debacle as an embarrassment, and they say that the rearrest is hugely welcomed. The ANC's First Deputy Secretary-General, Nomvula Mokonyane, also said it was an embarrassment and an indictment on the country. Bester was arrested by Tanzanian police with his partner, Dr. Nandipha Magudumana and Mozambican national Zacharia Alberto in Arusha in Tanzania on Friday. Now, to discuss these latest developments, we joined virtually by Police Union Popcru spokesperson Richard Mamabolo. Mr. Mamabolo, thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning to you and the viewers.
So the last time you were shocked along with the rest of us with the revelations relating to the escape of Thabo Bester, and now you've expressed your embarrassment about what's taken place and the rearrest of fugitive Thabo Bester and his partner Dr. Nandipha Magudumana in Tanzania. Talk to us about, this embarrassment and also what you make of this entire saga and how it's unfolded.
Yes, indeed, it's quite embarrassing. I think over the past 2 weeks, we were shocked, but with the revelations that came about since then, it was quite clear that there would have been some form of assistance which would have been offered to Mr. Bester in order for him to escape. And I think one of the most worrying things has been the fact that just last week, G4S was still denying that Mr. Bester had escaped. They were saying that he had died in the prison cell, while you had the Department of Correctional Services saying something different. So that then shows the kind of relationship that the department and G4S have, which would under normal circumstances have been a mutual relationship which would have had to be monitored by the Department of Correctional Centers, because when you enter into a public-private partnerships, there are certain conditions which need to be met in line with the Corrections Act 11 of 1998. So that then therefore demonstrates that there have not been proper checks and processes which would have been effected to ensure that this prison operates in line with what it was mandated to do. So this whole debacle has really had a negative impact on the public confidence in the criminal justice cluster in its entirety. But again, the rearrest as well brings relief to not only the victims of Mr. Bester, but to the general public. So we feel that since we are at this point where he has been arrested, we need to do some real introspection as towards the kind of relationship that government enters into. In the first instance, as a union, we do not believe that government should have outsourced its security role to any private companies, more specifically so because this is not even a local company, it's an international private company, which its main focus is profit maximization, as opposed to actually fulfilling the core mandate of the Department of Correctional Centers, which is to rehabilitate inmates. This, by the way, there had been different other revelations which had come about human rights violations within the same prison. And of course, since Bester had escaped last year, there has been another escape at the same institution. So you wonder as to whether the Department of Correctional Services had proper places and controllers who would have been there to monitor the situation or not. That is why we are saying as a union that both the department and, of course, G4S need to take accountability on this matter.
Now, if we look at this particular situation and pertaining to G4S in this regard, it would have been one thing had this been new, but it isn't. We spoke to Ruth Hopkins a few weeks ago, and she had been detailing some of the atrocities at Mangaung Correctional Services for many years. I mean, she spent a decade basically doing investigative journalism there and writing a book afterwards on what is going on. So we know the record of G4S, and yet they continue to deliver these services. Why hasn't that contract been terminated prior to this particular escape? Is this something that as Popcru you have raised or questioned in any way?
We have indeed raised that. I think you remember that back in 2013 there were similar allegations. And for about 6 months, the government had taken over the prison. and then after 6 months they gave it back to them. But still, even after that, we still had numerous complaints coming out of the same center. Now that we have this new Bester matter as well, the same thing is happening. We had the Correctional Services Commissioner actually taking over to an extent, and of course appointing certain people, but we do not think that it will lead in any positive results. What we think should happen is that this contract should be scrapped, because clearly the correctional, G4S has failed to comply with the requirements that they entered into, the contract that they entered into with the Department of Correctional Services. And this, of course, has been happening for quite some time. Just the level of arrogance that they have demonstrated by not even going to account at Parliament last week and insisting that Mr. Bester had died demonstrates that they have been arrogant. And we think that government is spending a lot of money on these private prisons. It's about over R1 billion on a yearly basis. And yet, when you consider that these funds could have rather been used to actually improve the conditions of the existing correctional centers across the country, which have got challenges around overcrowding and understaffing, we think that we would have actually been in a better position, as opposed to having a private prison that does not run in line with the prescripts that are defined within the Correctional Services Act.
So, Ms. Mamabolo, when you did raise this matter as Popcru, what was the official answer to you?
Look, part of the challenges that we've been having within the entire criminal justice cluster is that there have been a lot of changes over the years. You know, go to the SAPS, commissioners never finished their terms. This year as well, you've got a lot of changes. But we are confident that with the current commissioner, we have obviously engaged with them around this. And what they had committed was that they are not going to renew the contracts of the private prisons. But we feel that since these contracts last on a period of 25 years each, we still have 3 more years to go with this this arrangement. We think that it should be scrapped immediately. We should not wait for the next coming 3 years, because clearly there have been demonstrable failures on the part of the private companies to actually ensure that they are in line with the common age of rehabilitation. Their main focus is around profit maximization. And under such circumstances, you would then have instances where they do not report certain challenges, because they would feel that it would jeopardize their chances of continuing with the contract.
So we saw that media briefing over the weekend, and Police Minister Peggy Cele praising the country's intelligence for their role in the apprehension of Thabo Bester. However, a weekend publication then claimed that a senior police source actually rubbished Cele's claim, saying that the arrest was surely by chance because the SAPS was not actively looking in Tanzania, but in Mozambique or Zimbabwe. What's your take on those developments?
Yeah, look, under normal circumstances, the jurisdiction of the SAPS would be within the boundaries of our country. And of course, the fact that Mr. Bester had actually escaped our country and he was found in possession of apparently multiple passports does also raise further questions around our border control processes. And of course, I think the Department of Home Affairs in this regard would have to really as well look into their systems as well. But look, credit would definitely have to go to the police in Tanzania, as opposed to what we have seen locally, because I mean, we are speaking about a person who has escaped for almost a year now, and yet not much has been done until there were recently media reports which had raised suspicion about his whereabouts. So it's an indictment on the SAPS to actually as well ensure that its investigative capacity is actually enhanced in ensuring that some of these things are picked up before they even take place. So we need a proactive SAPS as opposed to a reactive SAPS. So I don't think anybody can claim the credit in this regard, except for the fact that we were assisted by officials within Tanzania.
And to that point of being proactive, many South Africans also raised eyebrows when the South African Police Services, through their forensic departments, were seen at the homes that were said to have been occupied by Thabo Bester and Dr. Nandipha Magudumana weeks after they had apparently escaped. What is your thought on that?
Look, investigations, of course, are something which is not necessarily shared in the public, but I would not find anything wrong with that. I mean, there should have been a reason why they would have went to those residences. I mean, there's always a need to obviously investigate as to what would have happened. Perhaps there would have been some form of evidence which would have been left, which would have given them a clue around which areas to look into. So I think that those are not part of normal operational processes of the SAPS, which are normally usually not shared with the public.
So with regard to the officials who may have been involved, and just generally the fact that prisoners seem to be able to buy their way out of prison, or just buy themselves all sorts of luxuries in prison, what's your view on that, and what needs to be done in order to curtail that?
What is quite clear is that this is a high security maximum prison, and of course it's supposed to be one of the safest in the country. So it is inhumanly possible for a person to have escaped out of that prison without necessarily getting assistance. And of course, in this instance, it's highly doubtable that it would have been assistance from only junior officials. Clearly, there would have been those who are within senior positions who would have assisted. I mean, as well as getting the body into a correctional facility and all those other operations that had been done there demonstrates that there was, of course, high people involved, and of course a lot of resources which had to go into plotting that escape. So we are not happy about the fact that DCS had reported last year that they had an internal investigation which had been closed, by the way, and out of that investigation there were about 4 people who were charged. We think that since Bester is coming back, investigations should definitely be done, but this time by the Judicial Inspectorate and the SAPS, because there is now a criminal matter. And of course, I think one of the things that we need to guard against, I think, as he returns into the country, is that he would have to be under serious security. Clearly, if he is taken back to one of these facilities, the likelihood of him not surviving are quite real, because there would clearly be certain people who would want him dead, so that he does not reveal whatever information that he could have in his possession, which would compromise some of these senior officials.
So given what has transpired already, as you say, there has been concern expressed about his safety and the fact that there may be some people who would not want him to reveal the entire truth about his escape, and those who assisted him in, finding his way out of that prison, and also everything else that has unfolded. For example, the story coming to light now, the investigation that proves that the Dr. Magudumana had actually checked out 3 bodies, and which she claimed to have been those of her father, which one assumes had been used in that escape. A lot of people need to be held accountable here. So, just in terms of that, where do you think this investigation should be led from? And you say Thabo Bester should be protected. Many people would agree with that, but who and how? How should he be protected?
Yeah, look, the main thing is that he does not go into one of the facilities that he comes from, and I think, of course, the SAPS has got that capacity to actually ensure that people with high interest, of course, are kept in a safe place. And of course, the issue around Dr. Nandipha is an issue for investigation. At the moment, we would not want to really dwell much into it until investigations are out. But our priority currently is the fact that we need to have government pulling out of this contract, because G4S has failed to comply with the prescripts, like I indicated, and of course we feel that some of these resources could as well be utilized to ensure that we improve conditions within our correctional centers. You know that, for example, we've got a lot of understaffing and overcrowding, and of course, even within our normal presence, we do have challenges around escapes and issues around the fact that there's 85% reoffending rate, meaning that people who are arrested in the country, those who are released, about 85% of them tend to reoffend. And this again speaks to the long-term objectives of the Department of Correctional Services. Hence, I'm saying that since there has been a new national commissioner, we have been in a position to engage and looking around the areas within which we can actually work together in ensuring that they become self-sustainable. And if that would be the case, we think that we would have minimal escapes, but also we would ensure that the core mandate is fulfilled. As things stand, the Department of Correctional Services needs to fully take over the running of these two presidents.
Well, we'll see how that unfolds because G4S expected back in Parliament. I say back, they were expected. There were a no-show last week. But of course, that committee sitting this week taking place. So we'll see how that unfolds. But thanks so much, Richard Mamabolo, Police Union Popcru spokesperson, and speaking to us there about the convicted rapist and murderer Thabo Bester's rearrest in Tanzania late on Friday night. He was with his partner, Dr. Nandipha Magudumana, and a Mozambican national. And we did invite Minister Bheki Cele and Justice and Correctional Services Minister Ronald Lamula, but unfortunately they were not able to join us this morning.